All right. Hey, everyone. Mark here. Good to see you guys. What do you got here? Alex, good to see you from Romania. That's how I get to start off my stream today with Alex from Romania. I love saying Romania like that. Good to see you, Grego. Good to see you guys. Oh, you won't be at the live stream. Okay, no problem. No problem, Alex. Well, thanks for stopping by and saying hello. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to say Romania. All right, cool. Well, I'll see you next time. Enjoy your travel. Hey, good to see you. All right, guys, good to see you guys. So today's Monday, and we're going to do my Monday stream here. If you're new, you guys aren't new, but if anyone else is watching that's new, here's how this works. So first, what I'm going to do is run through the economic calendar real quick. There's not much to say in that area today. Then we're going to go over the charts. We're going to talk about Bitcoin. We're going to talk about Nasdaq. We're going to talk about all the usuals. Okay, maybe throw in some new ones in there. I've been looking at some altcoins, so we can just maybe throw some of those in. And then after that, I will answer questions. If you have a particular coin or stock or something that you want to see, please share it in the chat. And then I'll get to it and we can take a look at your chart as well. All right. So, with that said, let's get started. First thing I want to mention, let's just talk about that economic calendar real quick. So, tomorrow is Tuesday. And what we have tomorrow is it's one of those services PMI number, one of those ISM services PMI. I believe that's a 10 a.m. Eastern time number, or it could be 8:30. Double check the timestamp because I don't know the timestamp. And it's not a big deal. Okay, that's usually not a major number. It was on the important part of the calendar, so I'll mention it. But that's usually not a major market mover, right? It's not like non-farm payrolls. It's not like CPI, nothing like that. So just be aware of it. Also on Wednesday, we have the British pound. They have their rate announcement. That's usually announced at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. Eastern time. So just double check that if you trade any Forex pairs, especially any pound crosses, they may be in effect there. Other than that, all the other items on the economic calendar were pretty tame. Okay. If there's no major dollar news, then usually the other items don't move the markets in any type of major way. That's just the way it is. Plus, we are now into the second week of August, and there was really not much else on that economic calendar. What we have this week mostly are stock quarterly reports, Q2 reports. And this week there are like 5,200, over 5,200 companies reporting. So one of the names I noticed on the list was AMD. I believe AMD is reporting tomorrow. And there were a few other big names, right? Those are some of the large caps. There's a whole list of them. So if you trade stocks or you're invested in stocks, you want to make sure you're aware of that. But I believe some of the big names like Amazon and all of them, I believe they were the week before. Either way, with these quarterly reports, everything seems to come out essentially the same way, and the market seems to like it all, right? The S&P, we had that pullback on Friday because of the non-farm payroll nonsense, and we recovered it today. So this market is not really, it's still complacent in my opinion. Hey, Hussein, good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. All right, I have a couple of things to say about that non-farm payrolls and that the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I have a couple of things to say about that in my rant. I'll leave that for my rant section. So that's pretty much it on the economic calendar front. All right, so let's. If you have any questions about that, let me know. By the way, if you like my channel, please subscribe. Please press the like button. Please leave comments after I put the video. It helps somehow. I've been working on some stuff. It's going to take me some time to get really content going and stuff like that. I stopped streaming on Wednesdays for now because it's no point in August. Okay. And also, hey, Nugs, for anyone new that's considering the Trade Scanner Pro, I'm going to tell you right now, if you're not willing to watch my previous streams on my YouTube channel, which explain precisely how to use it, don't waste your time. Don't even sign up. In fact, I'm thinking about taking it offline because people just don't understand how to use it. And that's partly my fault because it's not an intuitive tool to use. Okay. So I'm just going to put that out there. If you're like lazy or you're not one of those type of people that really wants to do much work, don't subscribe to it. Don't even bother. Don't waste your time. I would recommend watching my YouTube streams on Wednesdays. Watch those streams. Yes, they're a little long, but there's a lot of information on how to use the Trade Scanner Pro properly. And if you like what you see there, and you can follow along, then then I'd consider it. So just keep that in mind. Also, I've been looking at some altcoins, and I'm looking to spend some time researching some of these new to market, new listings, those type of things, because I think there can be some value there, some interest there. So, you guys interested in that sort of thing? I mean, would you guys, of course, look, you guys could do your own research. You could just go to, Chat GPT and ask it stuff, and it can tell you stuff. But where I would add value in that area is the technical analysis part. And that's the part that, like AI, at least the public ones that I've been messing with, it just doesn't get it. Like, sure, it can tell you support and resistance levels and stuff like that if you show it a chart, but it's horrible at confirming trades. Every time I ask it about confirming, it gives me this stuff about the RSI. Okay, and we all know. So it's basically looking through the internet. It's looking at the most captain obvious things and saying, "Oh, the RSI, you can use that for confirmation. Most traders do, right?" And we all know that that's a very poor choice for confirmation. Okay, so anyway, so that's where I would add value and precision to those type of picks if I call some of those. And it would also be on top of the Trade Scanner Pro. It's not like a blind call. You know what I mean? Not like, oh, Trade Scanner Pro just called something blindly and you have to do your homework. No, I would actually do the homework part and then, that sort of thing. All right. Anyway, do you guys are you guys interested in that? Yes or no? If I don't see anything in the channel here, I'll assume the answer is no. So that's why I ask, because even though it's a small sample, I just like to kind of get an idea to see if I'm wasting my time or not sharing it. So anyway, all right, enough of that. Let's talk about Bitcoin. That'd be cool. Okay, hey, cool. At least someone likes it. Someone wants to hear about it. All right. Anyway, no, but I'd be sharing. I'm not talking about charging for that. I'm talking about just sharing it for content. That kind of thing. It would be some sort of free thing, at least in the beginning for a while. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. It would be free. Cool. All right, cool. All right. I figured you guys might want to hear something like that because again, we're learning about altcoins, especially like these new ones coming out. I wouldn't just cover technicals only. We'd get a little into the fundamentals, tokenomics, a couple of those things where we can kind of spot some obvious signs of this is complete garbage or this one might have potential to maybe grow by 5 times or something like that. These would mostly be geared towards swing traders, but possibly investments too, because I would be working with weekly time frames as well with those type of things. All right, so I just wanted to get a sense if you guys are into that. Cool. All right. Yeah, I figured, and these especially would be interesting because they would be new listings, right? I'm very interested in the new listings, and especially right now in this environment because, there's a lot of enthusiasm for that sort of stuff, and there can be some opportunities there for some of these new listings. I mean, I was even looking at some of these, like these pre-sales, and there are some clues even with the pre-sales that are interesting. You can't get a chart, on these pre-sales, but it's just interesting to see how they're raising money, what their tokenomics are, what they plan to do with this coin, and all that kind of stuff. That's all very interesting things, and that information can serve as a tell for when this thing reaches an exchange, like a real exchange, what kind of potential does it have to really get moving, right? When all the mainstream Captain Obvious people get access to it, right? So anyway, so I'm gonna start getting to information like that because I think maybe there'd be some interest there. I know I'm interested in it. So all right, just wanted to mention that. All right, let's get into Bitcoin, shall we? So on Sunday, I wrote an article on TradingView yesterday, and I actually called the buy signal on there. And that buy signal was basically this right here, right? We had the 113 support. You guys know I've been talking about this for a while. We had the 113K support. The market decides to go back and test it, okay? Surprisingly, right, out of nowhere. And we got a buy signal. We got a green candle confirmation off of the support, and we broke the high of this red candle. That was the buy signal. And when I was writing my article, we just happened to be right there. So I wrote about that in my TradingView article. So far, it's up a bit. You can see my path, what I'm anticipating for this thing. Now, keep in mind, this structure, and this is the point that I want to make about Bitcoin. This structure right here is the entire thing is a wave 4. This is why knowing wave counts can really help you maintain important perspective. A lot of people, when they see a move like this, right? You know, all the YouTube morons and all the TikTok morons come out and they're, oh, Bitcoin going to 50K. Yeah, I'm shorting Bitcoin. And there's no justification unless it's a day trade, sure. But if you're looking for a bigger picture move on the short side, you're out of your mind. You're taking enormous risk by shorting something like this, because just because there's this initial move, this doesn't really mean anything until it overlaps wave 1 of this impulse. That's the key part of this. And if you knew anything about wave counts, you know that wave 1 and wave 4 cannot overlap, right? If they overlap, that cancels out the impulse. The impulse is a 5-wave structure. In other words, a trend, right? So this bullish trend that we have here from this other wave 4, this bullish trend is what I'm counting as a wave 5 of a wave 5. I've been talking about this for weeks. You can go back and read my reports and watch my videos. And as long as we maintain this structure, I believe it's wise to be bullish on Bitcoin, not bearish. Now, bullish on Bitcoin also means bullish on most of these altcoins. I was looking at XRP. It has almost the same chart, right? So we can use Bitcoin as our guide for these altcoins if you're buying an altcoin instead. But here's what you have to keep in mind. Wave 5 can complete over here at 123K if we make it that far. If price gets back up there and breaks it by a little bit, let's say it goes to 125, that could be it. That could be wave 5 of 5. That's a possibility. Or this thing can extend, right? And this thing can run up to the next resistance, which I suspect is up here in the 130s. And I got this number from simply doing an extension, right? I do this every week. I show everybody every week. I just do a trend-based extension. I basically measure wave 1 to wave 2. And you can see, right, the 123 touch, that 123 area was a 1618. All these are market proportions. That's all they are. There's nothing magic about this, okay? As you can see, the 2618 is around 131. I placed mine just a little further, almost into the middle of that area, right? So that's why mine is around 133, 134. Something overlapped up there. I think I had done another extension and something overlapped, but it's not going to be precise. Those when you do those projections, they're not going to be precise. But we got one projection in this area. If you had known that in advance, you could have known at least not to be buying that breakout, at least, if anything, perhaps taking some profit, putting a take profit order in that area. You could have known that in advance, right? There is value to those reference points. That's why I suspect, this is a reference point up here. That's about 100K Bitcoin GDP. Okay. Oh, against the pound? Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Well, there may be some significance to that, but I'm just looking at market proportions, right? There is something called market symmetry, and these proportions, perhaps they play out because as a self-fulfilling prophecy, everyone else is seeing the same thing, so everyone reacts there, right? But it's not that simple to where you can just take trades and say, oh, I'll just place I'll place a sell order there and get short at a great price. No, because if it blows through, you're in trouble, right? So that's why you have to wait for confirmations. These areas, like this area or this area up here, which we have not reached yet, they serve as reference points, where a place where you can set a notification and then pay attention. If price gets up there, pay attention to the price action. What kind of candle do you get up there? Do you get a pin bar? Do you get a weekly pin bar? Are you breaking pin bar supports? Like what's happening up there, right? That's what you want to pay attention to. Those are your confirmations. And even with a confirmation, it doesn't guarantee that it's going to pull back to any predetermined level. There's no guarantee of that, right? So now here's the other thing that I have to mention. If we go into wave 5, well, I mean, this is the wave 5. It's just we're in wave 4 of it, right? This entire structure right here is a wave 5. And if we get this leg, that's wave 5 of wave 5. That's important because, as I keep pointing out, wave 5s or wave counts are typically a measure of sentiment. You have to understand the market from a participant perspective or an order flow perspective. There is an active population of participants, okay? And there comes a point when no more new participants join, and all you have left is everyone who's long, for example. And if the active population, everyone is long, basically, and everyone that's going to buy has bought, that means the market has no more potential to go higher. It also means that the market becomes extremely vulnerable. But vulnerable to what? Bearish catalysts, right? So it doesn't mean that the market is just going to magically sell off just because a wave 5 completes 5 waves. What it means is that the market becomes vulnerable. This is most important for investors because these are the people that take the most risk and who are the most moronic at tops, right? Because they're like, oh, it's just a little pullback. And then they pull up a Michael Saylor video and he says, it's just noise. And they hold on to this thing, even though it's a wave 5. You've just exposed yourself to a huge potentially corrective, a large magnitude corrective wave, which now you're going to have to sit in that thing. And if it goes a lot further than you thought, now you're stuck in it, right? So if you're aware of what wave 5 means, then at least you know not to be buying more. At least you know maybe you should be taking risk off the table and those sort of things. I repeat this every week, by the way, but that's what wave 5 means. Now, wave 5 can also extend. This thing could run up to 150. There's no way to know where it peaks. It just becomes vulnerable. And if some news comes out of nowhere, like on Friday, let's talk about Friday real quick, right? Because Friday was basically what led to this momentum over here, okay? So Friday, we had non-farm payrolls at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. And it turns out that the non-farm payrolls, right, came in weaker than expected, a lot weaker. But more importantly, they revised the previous months, July and June and May, dramatically lower. That revision is what knocked the wind out of the market, right? Because these numbers that were reported those months were inaccurate. Now, and of course, the commissioner got let go. Good. They should. I thought that was the right move. Here comes my rant. I thought that was the right move. How can we have a government agency reporting these important numbers that are that far, like that inaccurate? I can understand they're not going to be perfect and that they're going to be a little off. And revisions happen all the time. I understand that. But maybe it's time, with all this AI up the ass that we have, don't you think maybe we can get more accurate employment numbers? I understand they do surveys to get this information, but don't you think maybe there's a better way to do it these days than the old way, which clearly, how are you 90% wrong on these numbers? How? Okay, now I know, of course, you say, hey, Mark, you're being naive. Never trust government numbers. No, I understand that. Trust me, I have my conspiracy theory hat on. I don't trust government numbers usually. But the thing is, the market does, right? So good numbers come out, everyone jumps in and buys. The market reacts, right? Bad numbers come out, the market reacts. It doesn't matter if the number is accurate or not, or what we feel about it does not matter. What matters is the market reacts, right? More importantly, Chairman Powell, on Wednesday at the press conference was emphasizing the importance of the employment numbers. He was saying, we have a robust employment situation and, so we're going to wait and see and blah, blah, blah. They are relying on this highly inaccurate number, the Federal Reserve. Maybe they would have cut interest rates if we had the truth. If we had the accurate numbers, maybe in July or in June, maybe the Federal Reserve would have cut. Okay. So that throws a lot of things off. My point of this rant is, that news came out of nowhere. None of the talking heads, none of the experts, none of the financial renowned experts were saying, well, these employment numbers, they're probably going to be revised dramatically the wrong. No one says that because no one knows what's really going on, unless, of course, you had inside information, right? So my point is, this comes out of nowhere. just like another negative catalyst can come out of nowhere while we are in the midst of a wave 5. And that catalyst may be at large magnitude enough to really get the broader corrective wave going. That's what I mean about the vulnerability and the risk. Okay. So the people that are going to be most vulnerable to this are investors. If you're a day trader or a swing trader, then you will be more nimble and you will be able to adjust to this information. But an investor, investors are morons. They're just mindless. And they sit there and they're like, well, it's just noise. And then when it's at 85K, then they're like, oh, I'm going to get out of this thing. And that's the bottom. So that's just keep that in mind. That's my argument. Now, all this stuff that I just said about Bitcoin, if this transpires on Bitcoin, right? We get a negative catalyst and it knocks the wind out of Bitcoin. You better believe the altcoins are also going to be in that position. All of these charts look the same. They're all correlated to Bitcoin and Ethereum. So if the leaders get punched in the face, they all are going to feel the pain, right? And then, no more altcoin season. Now we've got to wait for the next one, right? So keep that in mind. Use Bitcoin as your guide. I know we can't track 3,000 altcoins, but Bitcoin can serve as the guide for many of them, or Ethereum, because these are the leaders, right? So please keep that in mind. All right, so that's Bitcoin. That's my Bitcoin analysis, and that's why I'm emphasizing the vulnerability. I called for a long here. That's a swing trade long. I think there's some nice potential. You could risk a couple of thousand points to make 4,000, 5,000 points. That's all within reason here. And that's going to be the same for something like XRP or anything that has a similar chart to Bitcoin, right? It's the same idea across the board. But if some news comes out, like I said, we're up here, let's say we're pushing 123, and something unexpected comes out, next thing you know, we're pushing 108, that's a sign. Like, that's not a pullback you want to be buying so quickly. Maybe for a swing trade or day trade, but not to invest. The investment prices, and someone asked me this a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a week ago. The investment prices, if we're looking at like a 50% retracement from here, we're looking at like 80K, somewhere around there, right? A 50% retracement is pretty reasonable for a broad wave too. That's pretty reasonable. Typically, you get the retracement around the 382 or the 50, or typically around there, okay? But there is a possibility that wave two can retrace 100% of wave one. These are wave rules. Now, it doesn't mean that there's a high probability that it will do that. I believe it's a very low probability. But a 382 is within reason. I believe that has a greater than 50% chance, because 382 is very common, that type of pullback. All right, Hussein, can you check Litecoin? Sure, Hussein. If I forget, just remind me. All right, because I'm going to start jumping around now. So this is Bitcoin. In fact, actually, you know what? I'll do it now because we're on coins. We might as well. So Litecoin, right? LTC USDT. Let's take a look at it. All right. So look, here's a nice example. By the way, I was looking at this new listing coming out. This reminds me. I'll tell you the story. Bitcoin Hyper. I don't know if you guys heard of it. I'm not promoting it, by the way. They're doing their pre-listing. They're collecting money for it before it comes out. And it's basically, if you look through the details, it's a copy of Litecoin, basically. It's just more technically involved, but it's a copy of Litecoin. Who the F is going to buy this stupid coin with 21 billion coins that they're going to issue? Come on, man. 21 billion coins. Anyway, let's talk about Litecoin. Hey, Izzy from Kuala Lumpur. How are you? Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. All right. So Litecoin. Now look, so Litecoin is obviously a little bit ahead of the game here, right? Litecoin is obviously following Bitcoin. It's got a nice looking chart, Hussein. I have to say, so let's just first look at the weekly chart on Litecoin. And let's just kind of see where we are in terms of the bigger picture levels, right? So we have, I guess as far as wave count goes, I guess we can start counting. It's a tricky thing to figure out where to count from, but this looks like this is November, right? Yeah, that's the election. So that's your wave one in this situation, okay? Wave two, this is like, I guess your wave two, this entire structure here, wave two, which almost corrected 100%. right? And this is possibly your wave 3. 1, 2, this is 3. It's not the shortest wave, right? This is wave 4. So you're in like a wave 5 of this situation here, right? Wave 5 of 3, which can take you back up to this resistance area. That's very possible. In fact, it should go a little further theoretically if this is truly a wave 3, because I guess wave 3 can't be the shortest wave of the overall structure, and right now it's the shortest wave, right? So in order for this to qualify as a wave 3, it has to do this, right? Otherwise, it's not a wave 3. So it's possibly a wave 3 if it can extend itself further and not be the shortest wave. But if it's not, then it's still basically part of this wave 2. Okay, anyway, but wave count aside, the wave count just kind of gives us a broader view of things. We're not taking trades based on that, right? So let's go back to the smaller picture and just look at the more recent structure, right? So the most recent structure, look, I like higher low, right? Higher low. So we're looking at a higher high. We're testing this high over here, right? So we're looking at possible test of high, and you're going back into this resistance area. So as a swing trade, well, if you're, I don't know if you're long this thing, if you're looking to get long, I guess your confirmation, it's aggressive, would be the breakout. You need to see a breakout. You guys know I'm not a big fan of these type of breakouts, but you'd need to see a breakout. And if you take that breakout, what you don't want to see is a candle like this show up, right? Like it breaks out, and next thing you know, you get like a red inside bar. Like you don't want to see that, or a pin bar or something, right? That means you bought into a failed breakout and you want to make an adjustment there. That's a swing trade, meaning you have to take the loss, or it's a good idea to take the loss. Otherwise, you open yourself up to much greater risk. This thing may retest the support. This thing could be a consolidation developing here. This can easily be a wave 4 consolidation in this area. Very possible, okay? It doesn't look like it yet, but it could be. So if it breaks out, you're looking at a test of up in this area, okay? Which is what, 135? What's the high here? Yeah, around 135. Excuse me. Yeah, 135 area. Okay, you're looking at the 135 area. And this thing right now is at basically 120. So there's some room to play with there as far as swing trades go. Oh, you're thinking about shorting it. Okay. So good. I'm glad you mentioned that. So shorting that is going to be high risk, Hussein. I mean, because you're fighting this bullish structure. Everything is pointing to going higher, especially leaders like Bitcoin. They're all pointing higher. So shorting this is going to be riskier. It's going to be a lower probability play. At this moment, there's no reason to short this thing, right? This is a nice strong candle. But if you want to play the aggressive game, for one, think day trade or aggressive swing trade, right? For one, day trade, you simply wait for this area up here, look for short signals, and take your small bite. On something like Litecoin, a day trade could be a couple of dollars, maybe. I don't know, a couple of points. But if you're looking for the swing trade, then what you want to see here, Hussein, is you want to see the pin bar. Okay? You want to see a bearish pin bar develop. And you want to see the break of that pin bar low. That's your swing trade entry. And also, it would be nice if Bitcoin was doing something similar. If Bitcoin is going vertical and this thing is starting to give you bearish hesitation, it's still a little early, right? You have to wait for Bitcoin to turn around. The leader needs to turn around, and then this thing will probably follow, right? So at this moment, though, there's nothing here. But this, you have a reference point, and that reference point is, what is this high over here? 122 area, right? So the 122, watch that resistance level. And if that breaks, this is your next resistance level, okay? Where if you're looking for aggressive shorts. It's probably not a good idea to short this thing in between unless you get a clear signal, like a clear bearish pin bar. And it would be nice if you got something like that on a weekly time frame. That would certainly give you some more potential for that. Does that make sense? So I would definitely give you the warning on the bear side here, because you're fighting something that's generally strong. Your probability is better if you look for the long side. But I can understand why you're interested in the short. I can understand that. All right, so thanks. Good question. Okay. All right, so can we check? Sure. TS TS Pro gave a buy signal. Okay. On a 2-hour time frame. Okay. All right. We can take a look at that. And then after, we'll take a look at that. And then, yeah. All right. Real quick while we're on these coins. All right, Hussein. So again, look, I don't want to turn you off from your idea. I just want you to understand where the risks are. Okay. That's all. All right. Let's take a look at, they say that Trend Spider called a long. Well, look, all right. So just like I called a long on Bitcoin, it's the same trade. It's the same trade. I mean, let's see. Let's just look back here a bit. Let's just look at this most recent structure, right? We don't even have to go that far back. This is a one. Okay, this entire thing is wave 1. This is your wave 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, C. Yeah. So this is your wave 4. Have we overlapped wave 1? Almost. This doesn't really count as an overlap. I mean, you have a pin bar up there. That doesn't really count. Like it's very subjective with that overlap. Like if it's a pin bar, if there's like a pin bar involved, then it doesn't really count, right? So I won't call that an overlap. This thing is looking for wave 5. On top of that, the leaders like Bitcoin have not overlapped at all. So this thing has room, at least for a swing trade. Was it calling a swing trade? You said you took the trade. Buy signal. Okay. I don't know if it was on a 2-hour time frame. All right. So this is we're looking at a daily time frame. It called the trade on a 2-hour time frame. All right. I mean, that makes sense, right? I mean, we could take a look at a 2-hour time frame, and the bigger picture is going to carry more weight, of course, right? So that makes sense as far as the bigger picture is concerned. So you're going to see a lot more noise on the 2-hour time frame, but this is the time frame that you really want to be tracking. Okay, this one, because this is really what's going to give you the heads up or not. Now, if you may be calculating your risk on the 2-hour time frame, and that's okay. That means you have a tighter risk parameter, which is no problem. So what you want to see here, for one, is you don't want this to close as a pin bar, but if it closes like this, that's like half and half. You don't want this low broken, okay, which is 161.26. That would be a bad sign, okay? That you don't want to see that. But if Bitcoin keeps its party going, then this thing has potential, all right? And your resistance on this thing, you're looking at somewhere around here. See, all these things had that weight. This right here, this pullback right here, that's a C wave. Bitcoin had the same thing, right? These are all C waves. So once that C wave completes, which is typically 5 waves, right? Once that completes, now you're looking at a reversal or some kind of corrective move relative to that wave. That's what's happening here. It's a bullish corrective move, which aligns with the bigger picture. So as far as profit objectives, I mean, you can look back, and I mean, you could look at the 50%. This is a pretty reasonable area right here. 181, 180 area. That's a pretty reasonable profit objective in my opinion. That's right back in the middle of the range. You're not even anticipating new highs. So I don't know what they gave you as far as a profit objective, but that's 50% is within reason if this thing can keep the momentum going. If it gives you a conflicting signal instead, like breaking a daily low, then that's something you want to pay attention to. Perhaps make an adjustment for. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. All right, so let's move along here. In fact, let's jump around a bit. Let's take a look at let's go to the bond market. Okay? Because we need to be aware of the bond market. We need to check this regularly. I'm going to turn the Trade Scanner Pro on because also we want to see if there are any trades, any signals worth mentioning. All right. Remember, guys, like I said before about the Trade Scanner Pro, you guys, all my regulars, you guys know. But if you're new and you're like, oh, I'm going to try that out, make sure you watch some of my streams on my YouTube channel. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. Okay. All right. So this is the bond market, the 10-year note futures. This signal has been on this here for weeks. Now, non-farm payrolls, right? When we had non-farm payrolls on Friday, it caused this move right here, right? That's a very significant move for the bond market. Bond market doesn't move like that very often. But even though that's a significant move, we still haven't broken out of the range. We've been in this range for weeks and weeks and weeks. I mean, look at this. Look at this. Weeks. We've been inside of this little range right here. Look how much time it's spent in there. So we're probably not going to see anything happen here until like the November meeting or something. We're probably not going to see anything happen here, right? Or unless maybe a CPI number comes out. It has to be a heavy economic number to move this thing, like a non-farm payroll number, a CPI report, something like that. This thing called the short weeks ago, and it may stop out, right? Possibly on the weekly time frame here. I wouldn't use a Trade Scanner Pro like this on a weekly time frame, but it's also giving us a heads up for a short. Okay, another short signal. That's what this is over here. So if this candle closes like this, I mean, it's early, today is Monday. This candle would have to close and the low of the candle would have to be broken next week. Make sense? So, but what's happening here, the bonds put in a higher low, trying to put in a higher high, right? Which means if bond prices are rising, rates are going lower. That's what that means. And obviously they're pricing in a very high probability rate cut for the next meeting. In fact, if you look at the Fed Watch tool, I think the probability is like 80 something percent or something like that. Like it's highly priced in that they're going to cut, and perhaps a dramatic cut because of these inaccurate numbers that they've been making their arguments on. So ENA, sure, that was one. Actually, that was one of the new coins. That was a new coin that I spotted. I was looking at on a list that recently came out. Right, I saw that was one of the lists I looked at. Anyway, yeah, we'll take a look at ENA. All right, so you guys get it with the bond market. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this thing, but you understand that if bond prices continue higher and they start breaking the bullish, they start breaking these resistances, then that means rates are going lower. If rates are going lower, obviously the Fed may be cutting rates, or they're pricing in more Fed rate cuts, or we have inflationary problems, which we obviously have, right? So in an inflationary environment, the right thing to see would be rising rates, but no one wants to see rising rates because we have a very complex situation here, right? But lowering rates means easier money. That means people are going to be borrowing money. That means we're going to just run into more problems eventually, right? But in the beginning, it's going to feel good and everyone's going to have money to spend again. So just to keep in mind. All right, let's take a look at ENA. ENA, right? That's USD. I'm telling you, I was just looking at a Athena, right? I was just looking at this. So this is a relatively new coin, right? This was just listed recently. Yeah, all right, let's take a look. So I'm glad you mentioned this, because again, this is like going to be like on the list of coins that I'm going to start evaluating. So we might as well take a look. Now, obviously, I don't know anything about it fundamentally. All I saw was its name on a list. Okay, so maybe in the chat, just for people, maybe you want to share what they do or what their coin is about. Kai says non-farm actually dramatically changed rate cut expectations before Friday. After Powell being hawkish, it was basically right. That's right, Kai. Right. So that number came out on Friday, which what was the revisions that made everyone poop their pants? The revisions, because the revisions showed basically the Fed was basing their actions on very inaccurate information. So they may be that's why I suspect the market may be even pricing in more than 25 basis points. Right? Not only does he have to cut now the next meeting, but by how much? Is it going to be 25? Is it going to be 50? Because we have much slower growth. We're in a recession now and all this other stuff. Thanks, BLS. Thanks for your great information. So anyway, I mean, think about how many people that throws off. People that actually believe government numbers. Think about that. For us retail traders, it doesn't matter because we don't have to make decisions. But there are like institutions out there, people who manage, pension funds and all this other nonsense. And they're just as mindless as everyone else. So they plug a number into some financial model. Oh, the non-farm payroll came out this way. I plug this into my financial model. And the model says, buy everything. Okay, I'm going to buy everything like a mindless moron. And now the numbers are wrong. So think about that. Anyway, I was going to do a rant video just on that. I was just going to turn my camera on and just complain about that for 10 minutes. You know, there are guys out there that do that and are doing really well with their YouTube channels. They just complain for 10 minutes. Nothing fancy. Sometimes they're walking somewhere, or they're like in their closet, or there's somewhere where the sound is good, and they just complain about something for 10 minutes. And I'm looking at their subscribe. They have like 100,000 subscribers. I'm like, what the? Are you fucking? Sorry. Are you joking? I don't use bad language. Sorry. But yeah, anyway, I got to start doing that. I got to start complaining about stuff for 10 minutes. That's going to be my content. Anyway, all right, so let's talk about ENA over here. So ENA. Now, hey, do you want to tell us a little bit about what they do? Sure, Izzy, we can take a look at Doge. Sure. So just maybe in the chat, just tell us a little bit about them, because I don't know what they do. Anyway, let's take a look at the chart. So this is a weekly chart, right, of Athena. So first thing you want to note here is support and resistance levels, right? Clearly, we came off of, look at this, right? So we have a support over here in this area, right? We bounced off of that. That was back in, what is that? Okay, that's back in June, right? So that bounced off in June. And we have a resistance dating back to like here, and it rejected that resistance a week ago. Wave count wise, you know, we can actually count 5 waves inside of this little structure right here. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4. So basically, there are 4 waves that are present in that little structure. So A says here, let's see what A says over here. I have no clue what they do, but there was an Athena reserve made, and the coin has shown a lot of relative strength. Oh, okay. No problem. Well, look, we can easily find out what they do. All you have to do is go to one of your AI chat things and ask it, what does Athena do? And it'll give you everything. So there's 4 waves, right? Which not surprising, because Bitcoin also has the 4 waves. A lot of these things have 4 waves in them. So that means that there's one more wave likely, right? One more bullish wave likely. So what you're looking for now is this, right? You're like your 5th wave, something like that. And it's usually, it should be in proportion to this structure. So something like that. And using other levels, like just using this structure back here as a point of reference, I mean, you're looking at 50%. What is that? Like around here? 50% is around 76 cents around here, something like that. So this would be a good reference point for a wave 5 to complete. Okay. So if you're looking for swing trades on something like this, that would make sense. I mean, right now you're at 59 cents. So you're looking at maybe a 15-cent move, right? That's on the weekly chart. So if we go to the daily time frame, I mean, the daily time frame is just, you could just see more granularity. It's pretty clear. There's a buy signal in this thing. Now, yeah, look, you have this bearish pin bar developing now, but so when you see something like this, it's like, okay, the weekly shows a buy signal, but then you see like this bearish pin bar. Okay, no problem. You simply let this thing play out. And as long as you don't push this low right here, if you can maintain that low, or maybe you get like a pin bar somewhere, you're looking for another buy signal, right? This pin bar is a warning. So I wouldn't buy this right now, this moment, okay? Even though there was a buy signal back here, which is around the same price. So if you're in on that, now you just, you measure your risk. You can measure your risk from this low over here, which is what? 51 cents, right? So you're probably risking about 10 cents in this thing, something like that, to try to make 15 cents. The reward risk is somewhat sensible at this time. If this thing breaks below that, then you want to steer clear of it. But it's definitely been strong, and it has potential for one more leg higher. Okay. After that leg, I would be, much more cautious. And most likely, Bitcoin's going to be doing the same thing, right? Something like this. Also, the Trade Scanner Pro could probably help you if you're like on a 2-hour time frame. I'm sure we could find trades somewhere. Let's see. Remember, the analysis is generally bullish, right? So I'm looking to see if I could find any trades that agree with me. So it's giving heads up on a 30-minute time frame. See this? It's giving heads up for longs. So something like this can help you time the long entry on a 30-minute chart. 30 minutes is acceptable for a swing trade because a 30-minute chart can keep you in a trade for a week or something like that. That's a swing trade. So it's giving these heads up. So a signal is likely to appear soon. So that's another way that you can time the entry for something like that instead of waiting for a bullish pin bar like on a daily time frame. You could refer to a 30-minute using a tool like the Trade Scanner Pro. Does that make sense? So yeah. Okay, cool. So stable coin. Okay. Cool, good to know. So anyway, like I said, see, a coin like this would be ideal for like the research that I want to do, where it's got some promise, but also like just researching other details. See, like you don't know the other details, so I would research the other details. What are the tokenomics? What's the fundamental play? Like, why are people even interested in this? What's the sentiment on this? What's the community like on this? Does it have a robust and active community? What can we get a summary of the white paper? Like all these little details are nice to know, especially if you're thinking about investing in this thing, right? So putting all the information like in one place on top of some sort of sound technical analysis, which is that's the part that I'm doing here, right? People don't really care much about charts, but they get all excited if you put like, a fundamental story in there. People get really excited. And even though it's useless information. And another thing I was thinking about doing, you guys tell me, I'd love to hear your feedback on this. Another thing I'm thinking about doing is, you see how my charts are pretty bare, right? I got nothing on my charts. I just draw horizontal lines. Well, I'm actually going to start putting, like, if I do those reports, those altcoin reports, I'm actually going to start putting stuff on my charts that's completely useless. But I'm going to put it there just to get attention for the chart, right? Like, for example, a volume histogram, useless. But I'll put one there just to get people excited. I'll even put an RSI on the chart, right? Because why? I don't use the RSI, but people use it. People think there's something magical to it or something. So I will put an RSI on my chart, and I'll put some other things on my chart. Maybe some of it will have some more utility, but I'm going to put a bunch of things on my charts that are absolutely useless, but will garner interest. What do you guys think of that? I know, is it honest? Well, I can justify it as, well, I'm putting these tools for your benefit. I don't need them. They're useless. But the point is, I need to do something that's going to attract more of a following without being outright a fraud like everyone else is. Because I realized in this game, the only way to really win in this game is you have to be lower than everyone else, right? Like some of these guys, like the stuff that they do is horrendous. But guys like me can't compete because I don't do those things, right? I don't engage in that type of behavior. I have ethics, and I refuse to go that route. But because I choose this honest path, I suffer. I waste a lot of time. No one follows me. I do this for nothing, pretty much, right? I do this for nothing. So, and I've been doing this for years for pretty much nothing. So, so I got to do something, but staying within my boundaries of ethics. And I figure putting some things on my charts that I necessarily don't use, but other people might find helpful, that's not unethical. What do you guys think? Have tried to catch good alts early with very poor results. Maybe I just suck, but it's very hard. Well, that's true, Kai. That's exactly right. Right? Of course, if you're an insider, you're one of the developers that got some coins before everyone else, and then it gets to an exchange, then of course you're going to make money, right? But to go about this technically and just use like charts and try to gather fundamental information, it's still very low probability, right? That said, it is a great idea, right? So you guys, my regular followers, you guys know, like if you see an RSI on like, if I do a report on altcoins, for example, and you see an RSI there, now you know where I'm coming from with that. Like, I'm not putting it there for me. I'm putting it there as a reference point for other people. Analysis versus marketing. Right. Exactly. Like, exactly. And I'm not a marketer, so I suffer. Right. But I figure if I do something like that, I make the charts more eye-catchy, without, it's not going to deviate from my trade signals or anything like that. My trade signals are not going to be based on the RSI, We've tried to combine TA, narrative, social, with basically no success. Right. Well, well, first of all, Kai, most of that stuff is useless. Most of it, right? And I can tell you that most of it. The technical analysis part actually offers the most value if there's any. If there's any category or any component that offers any actionable value where you can actually take trades and make money, and this is mostly for swing trades, because investing is another game. Technical analysis doesn't really mean as much. It can help you time things and it can help you manage risk, right, in some ways if you use it that way. But it's not, technical analysis is not going to help you find the next big coin that's going to run $10 million worth or whatever. It's going to make you a bazillionaire. It's just not going to happen like that, right? The only way to get in on those is you have to be an insider. That's the only way. You have to be the developer of the coin. Then you'll get rich, right? So that's just an important aspect of this. But there are swing trade opportunities, right? And technical analysis actually can help you. Like, for example, when a coin like this is on its way, right? When it's moving, sure, we may not be able to catch the bottom here, right? We may not be able to catch this. But what you don't recognize, what you may not recognize, is inside of here, there are continuation patterns, right? To go long. There's also a pin bar right there, right? You may say, okay, yeah, but there's pin bars to go short over here, right? But you ignore those. If the structure looks like this, you ignore those. You're only looking for longs. Now, there aren't many opportunities on this time frame, but there were some opportunities here over the previous few months, right? To at least participate in some legs of this move. Also, you could have just been involved in Bitcoin. It could have been XRP. They all kind of look the same. Make sense? The problem is small cap alts, the TAs, because, well, that's true. But there are certain situations like when there's a structure like this happening, I mean, there's a strong trend. It really becomes a probability game, right? And if this trend stays intact, it's really a probability game and a risk game. How much you're willing to risk to bet on this probability, right? I have been around the block, and there's opportunity during strong bull market all season. Right. Well, so large to mid caps, right? Things that basically move, right? Things that move. But so I'm just going to be looking around again, seeing if I could find things that these aren't. I'm not looking for like the magical coin that's going to turn into like the next whatever billionaire maker, right? I'm not looking for that. I'm just looking for coins that may offer some opportunities, but also at the same time have a decent story to them compared to just the absolute garbage out there. Now, I mean, do meme coins have a decent story to them? No, but some of them have gotten a lot of attention. So there is a way to judge meme coins. It's just not the standard way that we judge financial assets, right? Speaking of meme coins, it's like a Dogecoin. Someone asked about this. So, okay. Anyway, when I do that, when I start putting that stuff out, it's going to be free anyway. So it's not like I'm, coming out with a subscription, whatever. It's eventually maybe I want to see what kind of feedback I get, but in the beginning it'll be free, so you guys don't have to worry about whatever. So look, Dogecoin, same story. Does this not look like the other altcoins that we looked at? The better performing one was Litecoin out of all these. But I mean, look at this. So just wave count wise, this is basically the wave 4 of all these other coins. Just like Bitcoin's wave 4, that's what this is right here, right? But some of these other altcoins, they overlap a bit. If this is our wave 1, if this is our top of wave 1 over here, right? If we consider this top of wave 1, right? All right, that's not even close, right? Then we have a consolidation for wave 2. And then this is typical wave 3, right? Wave 3s typically look like this. And then wave 4, all right? So, and this wave 4 had a pretty significant pullback, just like on Bitcoin. So you wait till it finishes pulling back, if you're looking for something like this, and then you have to wait for some type of reversal pattern, right? And it helps if that reversal pattern is around some sort of predetermined support level. Was there a predetermined support level? Yes. There was something around here somewhere, right? There was something around there based on this price action back here. Look, right? See that? You had some resistances, which when you break above a resistance, should act as a support. Okay, look, we're getting support. It could have been at least a reference area. You're not going to step in front of it, but it's a reference area looking for a certain type of price action. What type of price action have we gotten? What is this? It's an inside bar, almost. I mean, it's slightly off by a little bit. It's not exactly an inside bar, but this, you can treat this very similar to an inside bar. This may be called a piercing pattern, but it's the same idea, right? And then the break of the high of this candle is your buy signal. And that's the signal that I called on Bitcoin. It's the same signal. It's the same thing. Now, the question is, how far does this thing go, right? And where do you measure your risk from? Well, just like Bitcoin, you could measure your risk. It depends on where you bought it, right? If you bought this thing now, I mean, you're kind of you're taking more risk. You can measure your risk from the low of this current candle. You wait till the candle closes, and then you put your stop there, right at the low. And it's very possible that it goes there, right? But you kind of got not at the best price. That's assuming you bought it now. If you bought the breakout, then your risk would go here, right? Your stop would go here at the bottom of the candle. And it can go there. How much is that, by the way? That is, I'm trying to read there. Oh, it's about 9 cents. It's about 9 cents of risk. Let's just round that to 10 cents. That's about 10 cents of risk. All right, so that's what you're looking at. If you bought it at the breakout price, you're risking about 10 cents. So if you're risking 10 cents, you need to make at least 10 cents. Is this candle 10 cents wide? Let's see, 1985. No. Well, let me measure that. What is the width? What is the length of this candle? Oh, it is 10 cents. So this move, if you bought the breakout, you basically at one point had a 1-to-1. The candles look the same, almost the same. You almost had a 1-to-1, assuming you sold it at that high, right? But most likely you're not going to sell it at that high. So the question is, where can this thing run potentially? Again, just measure this entire move right here. Okay. Again, these are market proportions. They work only because they're a self-fulfilling prophecy. There's nothing magic about them. It's because everyone else is looking at the same things. You look at the 50% retracement. This is a reasonable area for it to test. It doesn't guarantee that it will test it, but that's a good place to estimate a profit objective. It may turn sooner, but that's a good place. It also may go beyond that level. But it's a good starting point to measure your reward from, so you have some sort of reward risk ratio, right? And at that point, I mean, if you're measuring from there, like if you just bought it at the breakout and you're looking at the 50%, right? You're looking at, what is that? 30, let's just say 30 cents, right? So that's 3-to-1. That's 3-to-1. That's pretty reasonable, right? Making 30 cents, risking 10 cents. So a trade like that is doable. But again, we saw these across the board, right? Bitcoin has the same configuration. There is a large retail that is only interested in new and not too big. Oh, okay. Well, Kai, that's good to know. Well, if you think about it, that's where all the new potential is, right? Some new coin comes out, and we see some of these, like some of the new coins that are still in their pre-sale. I was just looking at it. I have no intention of buying these things during their pre-sale, but I was just looking at some of the ideas. I wanted Wall Street Peepee, or Pepe, as I'm always corrected. Wall Street Peepee. You want to know what Wall Street Peepee is? It's a meme coin based on Peepee, but it has absolutely no utility or value. It's just based on a community, or basically a chat room. It's sort of like a new take on a chat room, which I thought was interesting. They're going to have like a community. Like if you buy the tokens, and then you have access to this community. And by the way, this is not a promotion for them. I just think the idea is interesting, because this may be what the future of communities is like. You know, like, so you buy these tokens, you have access to the community, and in the community, there's going to be education, and they're going to teach you how to trade and all this other nonsense and blah, blah, blah. And if you think about it, that's kind of better than paying some kind of monthly subscription that you never get back. At least you're buying some sort of token that could actually appreciate in value. And then they may have like staking incentives and all that kind of stuff. So it's almost like you're giving them a fee, right? You're investing in the project, and then you could take your money out at some point rather than you just give it to the content producer, right? You give it to the content creator and he just keeps it as usual, right? But in this case, there's some potential. So maybe it's another way of selling the dream. I don't know. But that's what it's called. You can Google that. Wall Street PP. That's what it's called. Okay. And it's in its pre-sale. So, and there's absolutely no reason. Like, it doesn't do anything special. It's just a community. And I'm like, oh, that's an interesting take on a chat room. Imagine you're buying tokens to be part of a chat room or a community. You're going to learn stuff, and maybe your tokens appreciate. And you could at some point take your money out, and you actually made money rather than just donating your money. So that's an interesting take, I thought, for a meme coin. All right. So anyway, so I think there's some interest there. Will 7 token pre-sale? Okay. Oh man. See, I start talking about pre-sales and what happens? A bot hears me and starts putting these bot questions in the chat. Ignore that guy. See, can I kick him out? I don't think so. They never let this platform. That's one thing I don't like about this platform. They never let me kick them out. So see what happens? I start talking about it and bots, oh, look, someone's talking about pre-sales. Great time to start spamming. All right, so that's Dogecoin. All right, so there are no surprises there. All right, man, I've been talking an hour. Wow. I talk a lot, guys. All right, so have I missed anyone's coins? Anyone have any coins? So let's jump around a bit. Let's see, like, what have I missed? Let's take a quick look at the S&P, right? ES1, because this has been interesting, right? This is important, especially if you invest in stocks. So this right here is all the stuff from the non-farm payrolls, right? The non-farm payrolls drama, and the market's gonna go to zero and all that. And we made it all back today. Look at that, made it all back. Now, I thought it was interesting that they released that information, and they released those what do you call it, when they came out with the updates for the previous jobs reports, right? They chose the quietest month with the lowest volume. Imagine if they had those revisions like in the middle of November. Right, this like the S&P would probably pull back 1,000 points. So, hey, UTXO, I'm a bot that has been spamming. Yeah, UTXO, it's okay. Some bots I like. I like you. You're all right. That's why I don't kick you out. So anyway, all right, yeah, I'll take a look at that. What is that? CFX? Sure. So let me just comment here on the S&P. So look, this S&P, again, this is sucking a lot of people in. And I'm just highly suspect, because when this thing turns, right, it's going to look ugly, and it's going to probably be something like this. But we're not there yet, all right, especially this month. Like, this is a quiet month, and it's going to get quieter. We're probably going to see less and less activity. It's the worst month to day trade, by the way, right? So if you're trying to day trade, this is a good month to take off, or paper trade, because it's very hard. Ranges are very muted, a lot of lack of follow through, all kinds of stuff, the low volume. So, but anyway, this thing recovered the whole thing. This right here is a higher low. Not only that, but there's a support right here. So this market's not going anywhere. This market's not bearish. It's not going anywhere. This is likely to retest the high. Okay, and with that bond picture that we just saw, if rates are going lower on their own, that's only going to drive these prices higher. Plus, remember what I said earlier before, we have over 5,200 companies reporting this week. So most of them coming out positive or whatever, this thing's got plenty of potential to make the higher high. So please keep that in mind. If you day trade stocks, or you're doing stuff with stocks, your stocks should be pretty stable and should be working their way higher, or at least not really selling off. If your stock is acting relatively weak, then you should be more concerned. But I would be anticipating a higher high on the S&P this week, which, by the way, is ridiculous. And we're not really rallying on GDP growth. We're rallying on declining dollar, right? Speaking of that real quick, let's just take a look at the dollar. That's basically what we're, look at that, declining dollar. We have a Trade Scanner Pro. We have a signal on the dollar. Trade Scanner Pro is calling the dollar short, right? Because they're expecting the lowering rates. Man, the dollar got hammered in that move. But then again, that's just inverse to the bonds. So it's interesting, but as long as the dollar continues working its way lower like that, the dollar index, that's what you're facing. All right, let's take a look at CFX. Let's see, what is that? Is that a coin or is that a stock? Is that a coin? I'm going to assume it's a stock. Oh, maybe not. Maybe it's a coin. CFX, USD. Oh, this must be it. Okay. Conflux. Okay. Let's take a look. So let's start with the weekly chart real quick. All right. Well, this kind of looks similar to like that other one you gave us there, Athena. Looks similar, right? So look, you got these previous moves. I mean, look at this thing. This is the weekly chart, right? I mean, basically, you have a range. You're still inside this range right here. You have a very wide range. You're fooling around the resistance areas of the range. So this is a coin. Like, I wouldn't be in a hurry to buy this thing. Look at this. You have based on the chart anyway, you have a pin bar that rejected that resistance on the weekly. Okay, pin bar, bearish pin bar. What you want to watch is this low right here. See that weekly low? You want to watch that right there. All right, I have some. Okay, sure. Yeah. All right, we'll take a look real quick. So this is what I would say about Conflux. The resistance is up in this area. You break this support, then that's giving you a bearish sign, right? And then I would be looking for maybe some sort of retest of maybe a support back in here somewhere. Let's see, what price is that? Around 12 cents. 122 right there. What is that? 122.20, 12.29. So 12 and a quarter cents around there. That's your next support if this pin bar low breaks, right? And I'll tell you, I don't like the tails up in here, especially since you had a sell-off from this area before. So I would say that that's a little more vulnerable and certainly bad idea for investing. Okay. If you were like, okay, maybe, I don't know if you could day trade this thing. This thing the price seems to be too low to like day trade something like this. It's probably very thick, but like you had see this little candle here, that red candle broke the high of that. You had some sort of buy signal there. Just don't know how far that goes. Like I wouldn't buy it now. You missed it. Okay. If you're in it, then give it a chance to retest the resistance. But you're probably going to have some problems. You're probably going to have some hesitation in this area right here because you had some previous tails over there. You see that? So just keep that in mind. Maybe you want to monitor something like that on a 4-hour time frame. If you see signals develop, conflicting signals, or maybe even use a Trade Scanner Pro for something like that to manage your trade. I don't know if that helps. Okay. All right. And who had one? Kai, was it Kai? Yeah. JF, can you have a look at? All right, now you guys, JF, man. Look, I'm sorry, you guys are coming out now. I've been at this for like an hour, so come back next week. I'm gonna do Kai's because I only like to stream for like an hour. Supposedly, it's like Chinese Ethereum showing strength. Oh, is that what CFX? Okay, it's interesting. All right, so just remember, if that's the Chinese Ethereum, then it's probably going to be pegged to Ethereum, or it's going to act in a similar way, right? So Ethereum may serve as a good guide. So JF, I apologize, but I'm going to do Kai's, and then I'm going to wrap this up. If you come to the stream earlier next time, I'd be happy to do your coin. XCN, I just have to cut this off somewhere. XCNUSD. All right, Kai, let's take a look. I mean, Kai has been following me for years. So, come on, I have to hook him up. So, all right, let's see. So look at this, Kai. You have a signal. It looks like you have a Trade Scanner Pro signal on here. So XCN, this is on Coinbase. So look, similar to the other coins, like similar to Dogecoin and for a few of those other ones that we saw, where they all have these buy signals in this area, right? Now, interestingly enough, the Trade Scanner Pro went off on this one. So this is giving you, look how the Trade Scanner Pro defines the risk. I would not define the risk that way. The Trade Scanner Pro, because the Trade Scanner Pro is using the ATR. That's why it comes up with that number. That's pretty wide risk, right? I think that's unnecessary. But the Trade Scanner Pro says 0026 is your risk, and your reward is 004. So that's 1.5 to 1, right? But here's how you would use something like this if you're interested in the long. Because, I mean, does the long make sense is the question. Remember, you don't use a Trade Scanner Pro by itself. You have to basically look at the bigger picture, come up with an analysis, and then see if the Trade Scanner Pro aligns with it. Now, interestingly enough, look at this move. Wow. Is that November? Oh, no, that's not November. That is some move there, Kai. So this is like a wave one, a gigantic wave one, and this is a wave two. Right? So this thing could be, oh, wait a minute. There's more. There's more. Let's take a look. This thing's been around. All right. So that kind of changes things here a bit. Well, this thing basically went to zero. And then there was interest in it. So we can count this as a wave one. All right. That's a new wave one. We can count it like that. And this consolidation is a wave two, which means wave three could be around the corner at some point if this thing can get its act together, right? So there's some potential here. I like that idea. Basically, it went to zero, right? So this thing has, if wave three develops, wave threes are pretty big, dramatic waves, right? Of course, there would have to be a very serious catalyst behind this thing for something like that to happen. Now, again, I don't know anything about them. Onyx coin, okay, I'm not familiar. But what you're looking for on something like this, for one, is you want to look at the range boundaries. So you have a range low. This is the weekly time frame here, right? So range low and range high right here. That's basically your range high right there, okay? This thing is sort of it has a bearish weekly candle. So you're going toward that range low. So I would be watching, Kai, I would be watching this area right here for longs, for bullish reversals. Yeah. Well, do you know what, Kai, can you share with us what they do? I mean, of course, we can all look that up, but just real quick, that'd be convenient. This is so what's the support level here? 0, 1, 2, 3. That's the low. So it's around 1 cent, a little over like 1 cent and a quarter, around there. You want to find maybe some sort of bullish candle. On something like this, you're probably better off working with a weekly time frame. So that kind of gives us some perspective for the daily and this Trade Scanner Pro signal, right? So the Trade Scanner Pro signal is going off here. Obviously, it's seeing the long because it's calculating this. That's what it's doing. So the way I would play this, of course, if you're interested in the long, is the signal pretty much aligns with looking for longs around a support. This blue line represents that support level. But what I would do is I would use this risk gap as an area to enter, right? So what you want to see is a price go back inside this area right here and then look for long signals, right? Something like that. And you're inside the risk gap, just like I do it on the day trade streams. By the way, this Wednesday I will not be streaming. I told you I'm taking the month off on those. But that's one way to go about it. If you want to be aggressive and take this long, I would not use this as my risk. Okay, I would use this right here, like basically this candle right here. I would basically cut the risk in half. Okay, if you're gonna take this signal where it is right now, if you want to do something like that. So the full risk I said is what, two whatever cents with that, whatever that was. So half the risk is going to be, what is that, like 1? Well, no, a fraction of a 1, 0.001, right? that would be like I think that's more reasonable risk on something like that. And of course, your reward objective, the Trade Scanner Pro is giving you this number up here, but you can also cut that in half, around here somewhere. That's also very within reason if you're considering the swing trade. I told you I'm taking a month off. Yeah, no one was asking. I just want to remind people. Okay, just interested in the price action. Okay, all right. So yeah, that's where I would place something like that. You can look at it aggressively and say, okay, possible long. Just your risk. I just defined the risk for you. The Trade Scanner Pro has some nice definitions, and then you can work with that even closer by using this area as a risk gap. Like I said, in this environment, I don't like to take these signals outright. What I like to do is I like to use them as a heads up and then wait for a new confirmation, a secondary confirmation from the candles, ideally somewhere inside this area, right? And that gives you a much better price usually. And if the market sells off, like we've seen on the day trades, it helps you stay away from it, right? And I was able to avoid a lot of stop outs by that. But we're talking about a 30-second time frame, which is not relevant to this here. All right, makes sense, you guys? All right, so again, I'm sorry for the guy that asked about the other one earlier. Like I said, just come earlier and ask me, and I'm happy to do it. All right, you guys, so I'm going to leave you with that. If you guys have any questions, you know where to find me. I'm not going to be streaming on Wednesday because it's just this environment is just not worth it. All right, I'm thinking about I have to do something with that account. I'm thinking about just going all in with it and trying to blow the account because if I'm not going to trade, I don't trade that account. It's an evaluation account that I've had since April. So okay, no problem. I have one, but it's not very active. So I don't because I don't yeah. So there's some people that sort of maintain it, but yeah, I wouldn't consider it active. That's why I don't share the link. So anyway, all right, you guys. So if you have any questions or anything, where you can find me, you can send me an email, mark@markpmarkets. All right. Well, if I had activity, then if I had people showing up, but it's hard. It's also hard to maintain. But anyway, maybe sometime I'll get that going again. All right, you guys. So thanks for watching. Again, I do this every Monday, 3 p.m. around 3 p.m. Eastern time. I'm taking Wednesdays off for this month, but I'll get that going soon. All right, guys. So again, I appreciate all you guys. I appreciate all your questions. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your evening, wherever you're watching in the world. And again,